Let's welcome our next speaker, Ms. Bahareh Khezr, Senior Consultant at Curzon PR. Bahareh is an experienced marketing and communication professional who advises corporates to cultivate and maximize relationship with external clients and communicate their mission, policies, and goals to the public. Welcome, Bahareh.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on board. It's a pleasure to be part of this conference today, and I hope that anyone who's watching me at this moment are going to pick up something valuable which is related to their interest. So I'm just going to share my screen with you while I'm going through the presentation. Oops. Apologies. Just giving it another try. Okay, here you go. Okay, I hope everyone can see my presentation this time. Okay, so as we all know, the past 12 months have changed our lives. It has changed the way that we communicate, the way we look at things, the way we plan, and equally, obviously, it has changed, the way we communicate. I mean, there are lessons to be learned from the past 12 months with regards to our brand's ability to capture and maintain the targeted audience. So today, my presentation is about, PR trends that will impact your brand success in 2021 and beyond. And, the reason I chose this topic is because things have changed massively. So the past is not as relevant as it used to be because things have massively changed. And I will go through that in my presentation. Future, we're not aware of. We're not 100% sure what's going to happen. Will the pandemic finish totally? Will we have, other natural disasters? Will everything be fine and beautiful? So the only thing which is massively important is the present and what's happening now. So the present is the most relevant thing, that we have at the moment, and we can plan for it. Okay, so in this slide, I'm just going through the shifts in 2020, which has, changed everything with regards to the PR and communication industry, either any communications that you do internally in your business or externally with any kind of PR firm. So as we know, 2020 shifted the public relations landscape in ways that were impossible to predict. There was an acceleration of digitalization, as we all know. AI and tech took center stage, and these were the trends which were there before, but obviously the pandemic pushed them forward. The other thing is, hence, the already crowded digital marketing space became more crowded. Personalizing your marketing to stand out then assumed greater importance. So in the past, if you did understand how to use your digital channels, it could be social media, blogging, any way you would think about, it was good enough. But things have actually massively changed. And now we have to be careful and personalize everything and put a proper plan and strategy in place. The average consumer became more sophisticated, socially conscious, and politically aware, as we all know. The first thing I start with is the content itself. So before, content was the cake. If you had a content which was good and it was a quality content, it was easy to open your door to your targeted audience or any audience. But things have massively changed. One of the reasons is that, we were all sitting home in the past 12 months. We were not able to go and meet people in any level you would think about. personal business level. There were no conferences, events, all started later in form of online. And the only thing we could do to communicate with the world was really go there and put contents out. In any perspective you would think about, it could be blogging, it could be social media. So basically, we end up to have an avalanche of content that, as people were restricted to work from home and couldn't really hold any press conferences or events. So content became a principal way of communicating with prospects and clients. So now, when we have that avalanche, what is important is to channel it more accurately. So the content by itself is not the king anymore. What is important is the relevance. So it should be relevant to your audience. And also, you need to have a proper targeted distribution to understand who are your audience and what they want to say. It is also very important to marry PR and SEO. To be able to basically have a winning content. So if you think about it, you're actually going through a circle. So everything started with SEO. And then going from there, we started to generate content to making SEO stronger. So basically bringing more traffic to our businesses, to our websites. And then now when you have so much of content, you go back again to SEOs. And now we have to plan everything properly. So for the next few years, your ability to dominate any industry will be driven by getting your message across to a relevant audience. So in some of the slides, I actually have put some of the kind of thought leadership blogs, either from the ones that we generated in Curzon or from some other publishment or or other kind of PR firms. The reason I did that, because in case if audience want to deep dive into the subject I'm speaking about, then they would have the chance to do it. Okay, so advanced PR tools went from nice to have to got to have. So a lot of PR firms were still running very traditionally. So they were working with lots of spreadsheets, which were basically holding their contacts. It could be their media contacts, it could be their network contacts, clients, whatever you would think about. So ironically, to give a human and personalized experience without meeting in person, we now need to invest in sophisticated tools, digitalization, and big data. So now there are too many details, influencing factors, and dependencies that must be tracked as relationships develop in any concept you would think about. So I'm just giving some examples here, and these are just examples, there are more in the market. But in terms of relationship management within the PR and communications, HubSpot is a good platform and is also quite good in terms of dealing with clients or prospective clients. Media monitoring and social listening platforms like Session, Meltwater, Muckrack is quite important. I will go through that later. Social listening is quite important to basically protect your business from any kind of reputation damage, obviously, because you need to see who's writing about you, what are they saying. And also Session has a database of journalists and press, which is quite good to have in terms of media relations. Time and project management tools, Trello. As we all are aware, we are sitting in different part of the planet. We work from different part of the planet. It is very important to project manage people online. And Trello is one of the good project management systems you could use for that purpose. Influencer outreach management, Livestream and Ninja Outreach is quite good. And in terms of podcast, Buzzsprout is quite easy to use, it's quite popular, but again, there's so many of them out there. Okay, this is not of our surprise. We all know social media was the universal winner of the pandemic. So we all went on social media to communicate. So as COVID hit early last year, social media then emerged as somewhat of a saving grace as brands scrambled to escalate their online presence. It was easy to use them. It was a low barrier to entry. It obviously was a very low price. It's almost free to join any of them. And if you want to do any social media advertising, the prices is not really as much as a normal advertising, and it can actually reach as many people as you could think about. But similar to SEO, O principle, which I was speaking about, the circle, it basically, we started to have a crowd of social media, lots of people putting content there. And not only that, it was lots of people who were commenting and doing what you're saying. And there were lots of people who were writing about you. So you need to have a more sophisticated approach to social media now. You need to exploit social listening and management tools like Sprout Social, again, Meltwater, Brandwatch, and old-fashioned research to have a better understanding of psychological profile of your users. So that means you need to see who's following you, who's writing about you, who's commenting on your posts. Are they really relevant? Do you really want them in your business? Or are they really credible people to, see what you're doing? And that leads us to the next presentation, which is mind the gap. So as Michael Porter mentioned, the essence of any strategy is choosing what not to do. And there are two subjects I will speak about here. The first one is that new platforms will be cool, but might not prove might prove a distraction. So you need to see who are your audience, where is the platform they always go, where they normally engage. Because otherwise, using all different sort of social media platforms that are outside are not necessarily relevant to you and your audience. They're just going to take too much time and headspace from you and your team, and it would actually be a distraction. The second thing is the disinformation dilemma. So obviously, the social media platforms were set up for everyone to basically share and distribute easily. And write contents and communicate, but they were not built to any type of editorial judgment on the information shared by users. So you have to be very careful about what users write about you, monitor your channels to see who's commenting on your post or who is associating with your brand. Otherwise, that could lead to crisis that it would be very difficult to clean up. Okay, so this is coming to the next presentation about proactive reputation management. And the reason I call it proactive is because a lot of people think that reputation management and crisis should really come when the crisis happened. That's not true. It should have happened far before. So that's why you need a plan in advance for crisis and reputation management. So it is getting harder than ever to say anything meaningful without someone else somewhere rising up to call you out. Brands are at increased risk of unintentionally upsetting the audience and suffering all of the bad press that comes with that. So it's always easier, and as I mentioned, it's always easier to clean up a mess if you made a point of preparing ahead of the time. A committed, consistent reputation management outreach will be critical when, not if, the time comes to handle a PR crisis. Okay, so obviously all the live stream went mainstream. So we had no choices. We all have to convert all the live stream, all our meetings to basically online and digitalize it. And that was a trend which already started, especially when it came to global, international, large conferences. But this time, COVID had pushed it harder to the next level. So 2020 will always be remembered as the year of virtual events. So even if we can, we may never go back to large scale of gatherings. And the reason is because we realized we could connect with anyone from anywhere in the planet, no matter the pandemic, finish one day and totally disappear. But we realized the beauty of to be able to connect and not being restricted to, as attendees, to be on the place and to go there, and as a person who's setting it up as well, they would actually be able to connect with anyone. The future of event marketing growth will be in hybrid happening that attract both physical and virtual participants and attendees. So basically, it is probably going to be a mix of it very soon. We're going to probably have a smaller scale of people coming to the events, but actually have at the same time broadcasting it, across the world in a digital way. Having said that, I personally believe that this is exactly a cycle again. So we started with physical events. Now we're doing virtual. We're going to hybrid. And I believe at some point, we all start to realize it's nice to meet other people face to face, and things might slowly go back again to the physical events. But then we should actually look at digital events exactly the way we were looking at the physical event. It is very important to know who you're targeting, set up a proper campaign to advertising it on social media, especially on the online platforms, and also having a proper guest management plan in place. So be strategic about conducting virtual or hybrid events. What are the objectives? Is live stream the best way to get this message across? This is something we need to ask ourselves. It is not just about preparing the event, but about promoting it pre, during, and post-event for best engagement and return on investment. So learn how to pull off an impactful, engaging live event in virtual format, then tailor content from those live events for the long-term consumptions. So it is very important, because we're not there face-to-face, making sure the presentation you have could be used for consumption of people after the presentation. Okay, so the global and diverse content is massively important. So at Curzon PR, we've always been a diverse team, and we're sitting all around the world. We actually even expanded that more in the past 12 months. And the reason is because your audience, your clients, even your team are sitting all around different parts of the planet. So we have companies like Spotify who actually comes out and say, you know what, it doesn't matter where people are going to sit and work from. It really doesn't matter. And they start to hire from anywhere. Because of that, it's quite important that you approach your communication channels in a diverse way. It is important you have a diverse team who understand different languages, different cultures, and different approach. And they are actually aware of different markets. So a diverse communication and marketing approach encourages different thinking and sensitivity towards other cultures and ideas, and attracts global stakeholders to your brand. Content shouldn't be just targeted. It has to be reflect the interest of an increasingly diverse workforce and client portfolio. Think about content themes that will resonate with the global audience. Inclusion and diversity are at risk in the crisis, as we know, and we read everywhere about it, but are critical for business recovery, resilience, and reimaginations. As McKinsey says, some of the qualities that characterize diverse and inclusive companies, notably innovation and resilience, will be much in need as companies recover from crisis. Okay, and this is my last slide. So if we're putting everything in a nutshell, we have entered a phase where people and organizations create content that is a lot more thoughtful, a lot more relevant, and a lot more interesting. Research, strategy, and planning is the key. So we cannot actually approach different communication channels, especially the digital ones, just as of happened. We have to make sure we do proper research, we do set up proper strategy and a plan before we go ahead. And as Sir Winston Churchill says, however beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. So measurements and evaluation is very important. You need to watch what's happening with your content, what's happening with the stuff you're putting out. And did you really attract right audience? Have you actually done the right engagement? And have you actually reached your objectives? And thank you so much for listening. You're more than welcome to have any questions. I'm happy to answer.